night. She reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star. She opened the earth, walking with blood-soaked feet. She challenged the whip, the gun, the knife. She challenged the fire, pulled from the bodies of slaves, made into laws, prisons, and courts.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Get your get your popcorn, get your sodas, and get your seats. The sequel is about to begin. Yes, we've seen this film before. House Republicans are searching for a new plan as the government shutdown looms just hours after midnight Saturday morning. They had a bipartisan deal to fund the government until March. They had a deal until they didn't. Trump, who isn't even in office yet, and Elon Musk, who wasn't even elected, scuttled the entire thing. Minority Leader Jeffrey says, quote, "The Musk-Johnson proposal is not serious. It's laughable. Extreme MAGA Republicans are driving us to a government shutdown," end quote. What's going on here? Oh, by the by, where's the president on all of this? Where's the vice president on all of this? You know, the folks who are still in office? Let's connect some dots.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon, and I am Wilmer Leon. Here's the point. We have a tendency to view current events as though they happen in a vacuum, failing to understand the broader historical context in which most events occur. During each episode, my guests and I have probing, provocative, and in-depth discussions that connect the dots between these events and their broader historic context, thus enabling you to better understand and analyze these events that are impacting the global village in which we live. On today's episode, the issue before us is the looming government shutdown or slowdown. My bad, shutdown. As the Washington Post reports, without new legislation, the government will shut down just after midnight on Saturday, shuttering federal agencies, furloughing hundreds of thousands of workers, and forcing many others, including air traffic controllers, airport security agents, and even military service members, to work without pay on the eve of the Christmas holiday. My guest to discuss this is the senior editor and senior columnist at Black Agenda Report and author of Prejudential, Black America and the Presidents, Margaret Kimberley. Margaret, welcome back.
Hi, thank you so much. Good to be here.
So let's start here. Lawmakers began this week expecting to really cruise toward passage of a bipartisan deal. And it's important to underscore bipartisan to avert this shutdown. And now here we are without new legislation. The government will shut down just after midnight tomorrow morning, shuttering again federal agencies, furloughing hundreds of thousands of workers, forcing many, including air traffic controllers, on one of the busiest travel periods of the year. Margaret, MSNBC and other outlets, they're blaming overreach by Elon Musk. To that I add, where's the president? Joe, put on your robe, get a popsicle, and come and talk to the American people. Margaret Kimberley.
Well, thank you so much, Wilmer. It's great to be back with you. I had the same thought that you did. Apparently, Biden canceled his vacation. Kamala Harris was supposed to be going to California, but rushed back to Washington. And is it about this vote? Nobody says. Of course, we have a president who, as we know, is not even well, and it's not sure what he is and isn't in charge of. But it's astounding to me that there has been no comment from him. Obviously, if he doesn't say anything, Kamala Harris won't say anything either. But that this and it's terrible because it's a huge scam. It's a political scam, a hustle on the part of the Republicans. They just don't want any kind of budget deal while Biden is still in office. They've undercut their own people. Speaker Johnson, his position is in jeopardy. I wouldn't want to be a Republican Speaker of the House with Trump in office. You don't know when you'll be undercut. But it's horrible that federal workers either won't be working at all, or as you mentioned, some of them in the military or TSA agents, etc., will have to work without being paid. And all because of a show that Trump wants to put on before he enters office. So this whole thing just shows how the failed state that we live in, that we have a president who is a non-entity, and we have an incoming president who prefers to pull stunts like this rather than to govern. The party that's coming into power having weak leadership. Obviously, with Donald Trump, any other leadership is going to be weak. And Democrats complaining in some kind of way, but not in any way that is effective. It just says a lot about the country, and it's nothing that's very good. We have a duopoly that fails the people time and time again, and we're seeing this from actually a person who's not even president yet, allegedly, but nature abhors a vacuum. Trump is looking more like a president than Biden is.
And to that point, I'm going to repeat the question: where is the president? So the Democrats, in my humble opinion, got stomped in the election. They didn't even win one swing state, and so they're off in the corner licking their wounds. And now Elon Musk tees up a perfect opportunity for them to step to the mic and say, we're the adults in the room. We don't want the government to shut down 4 days before Christmas. We don't want security, airport security. We don't want air traffic controllers disgruntled in the control tower on one of the they have a whole litany of things they can articulate and say, see, and I'm not hearing. All I'm hearing is crickets.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. Actually, to add to what you've said, this lack of leadership. We don't have any political leadership. The alleged president is silent, is absent. I mean, this is a crisis. And to have a president, alleged president, who hasn't said anything is emblematic of this crisis. Of course, predictably, now we're beginning to see Wall Street Journal had a story about what anybody who was paying attention knew. Biden has cognitive decline. He can't work past a certain hour. Some days you can talk to him. Other days you can't talk to him. These are things that we've noticed since 2020. So now we have a situation where we really need a president, and plus, ever since the coup against him over the summer, which pushed him out of contention for running for re-election. He's been very absent anyway, unless it's about helping Israel commit a genocide or giving Ukraine more money to send young people to be cannon fodder. But aside from that, he's absent. And the incoming president, he is, I will say this for Trump, he's consistent, if nothing else. He had a shutdown while he was in office that went on for some weeks, causing a great deal of suffering.
32 or 33 days.
Right. So it was a little more than a month. So, and we have, Elon Musk, this, he's like a villain in a Bond movie, the richest man in the world who has the president's ear. Although I have to say, presidents always have a rich person in their ear, don't they? But this person is one who will only encourage these kinds of political stunts that are harming the country.
What does this say to you, or what does this demonstrate in terms of concern going forward? Because what I think is important, one of the things that is important for people to understand here is they had a bipartisan deal. Johnson and Jeffries, they had a deal. They shook hands. Let's get this done. And at the last minute, Elon Musk, again, not elected and doesn't really know anything about government, and let alone governing, scuttles the whole thing. So let me just start with that. What does that say to you about how things are going to operate going forward?
Well, this is something that Republicans have been doing for a while now. This goes back to the days of Newt Gingrich back in the 90s. He had I can't recall if he actually had a shutdown or threatened to. It was much shorter, though, I believe. Mm-hmm. And of course, he's weighing in now and saying, "Go ahead, shut down the government again." But it speaks to the weaknesses of American politics. In the Republican Party, it's especially difficult. You have this mercurial man, Donald Trump, who has this hold on the Republican electorate. So establishment figures don't like him, but they can't get rid of him. And he brought them back from the dead politically. So and now he's going to be president again. But he did this as a candidate. Earlier this year, there was a bipartisan deal on immigration, and Trump didn't want Biden to get credit because he intended to run on a platform against immigration. So the last thing he needed was for this deal to go through. So he steps in and scuttles the whole thing. The previous speaker was I believe there were 15 or 16 votes before his caucus even chose him. Then, of course, they got rid of him.
No, not Mike Johnson.
McCarthy.
Mike McCarthy.
Yes, his predecessor. Then he was undone because there were members who didn't like him. It wasn't even over at anything political. So I wouldn't want to be in Republican leadership because their members are elected by people who are very conservative. And so all they need is to be told that someone isn't conservative enough. And so they will get rid of a speaker or make somebody grovel before he becomes the speaker, or let Donald Trump come in at the last minute and change something that they worked on. So it's a party that actually, well, I have to say this, though, the Republicans actually do listen to their people. This is something a lot of Republicans want. Democrats, on the other hand, can't count on their party to do anything that they want them to do. But we see the weaknesses in both parties, and we see how this is a failed state. This is what we have, that there can be no consensus, that it's difficult to come to agreement. But so we shall see. But this is not a good start to this new administration. But as I said, it's easy to give Musk a lot of attention. How could we not at this moment? But rich people run politics in this country. America has an oligarchic class, and they always have the ear of presidents.
You mentioned that Donald Trump has a hold on the government.
Mm-hmm.
I am a political scientist, and I do remember something about separation. Separation of powers. That's what it is. And also there's something else called checks and balances. Those are two fundamental. I'm going way back in the memory bank here, but I seem to recall separation of powers and checks and balances, and those things now seem to have fallen by the wayside.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We have a legislative branch that is very weak, that has been giving up its power for years over a variety of issues. Don't declare war, allow presidents to act without, they let go of the checks and balances. They stopped making the demands that their branch is mandated to perform. So yes, the idea of checks and balances is one that is gone. However, there was always negotiation between the executive
Right.
and legislative branches, but that seems to have disappeared. They call it pork. I'll give you an example that happened during a Democrat. They call it pork barrel projects. Members have money for certain things in their districts, earmarks they were called, and Obama really weakened that. Democrats and Republicans all gave that up. That was something important that helped the people. So it's easy for people to call it pork and wasteful, but there's always something that people need across the country in their districts. So Congress has been giving up its prerogatives for a long time, and in a situation like this, with someone like we had an absent president in Biden. We had, and I don't want to just say the Republicans are the only bad guys. Biden had a mandate from his people. He said he was going to raise the minimum wage, for example. But then we would be told the parliamentarian says, no, you can't put it in and Build Back Better, which died anyway. So we have a system where people who are not elected are actually running things. We have, and those people don't want the public to get the things that they want. So you have political parties lying to the public about what they can do, or offering very little, like Kamala Harris, and of course she lost. Donald Trump tells you what he's going to do, but this weakened body politic allows him to pull a stunt like this. So none of it is very good. But I urge people to pay attention. This is just one of the reasons that I think, have to stop saying that we live in a democracy, because we don't. It does not work for the benefit of the people. It does not work very well at all.
You mentioned the Democrats can't count on their party. And one of the things that I'm wondering is, will the Democrats capitulate? Will at some point over the next few hours, will they come to the mic and say, we have reached an agreement? We can't have the government shutting down at Christmas. We can't have people without getting their paychecks. We have found a way forward. And that way forward will wind up being Donald Trump / Elon Musk getting exactly what they want.
Yes. I'm having a little trouble with my camera.
That's okay. Go ahead. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question? I got distracted.
Yeah, not a problem. So the question was, they have until basically they have until there we are. They have until midnight. They have until midnight tomorrow morning. And you mentioned Democrats can't count on their party.
Mm-hmm.
I am looking. Let me put it another way. I expect that a deal will be reached, and that deal will involve Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader, coming to the microphone and saying, "We've reached a deal. We can't have people without their checks at Christmas. We can't have people working for free. And so, in the spirit of the season, we have come together. We have found a deal. God bless America." And the deal will be capitulation by the Democrats, and Donald Trump will get what he wants.
Oh, absolutely. He will. Because as we've said, there's a vacuum at the top of the Democratic Party. No president, no vice president making any statements. I mean, that's their first clue. They haven't even expressed any opposition. They've been absent. So that is exactly what's going to happen. We have Donald Trump, who will win before he's not even sworn in yet. And he is running the show in Congress. He's telling the world he's the boss before he officially becomes the boss in about 5 weeks. So I think you're absolutely right. That is what's going to happen. But I hope that Democrats, rank and file Democrats, learn from this and stop saying that. For example, all year long, we've been told Trump is a fascist. Trump is like Hitler. And then we're going to see a deal with Hitler.
Wait a minute. J.D. Vance told us this is not a Democratic trope. J.D. Vance, Donald Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, the vice president elect, is the one that told us that Donald Trump is like Hitler. I make that point because I want people to really understand. You and I, we're not throwing out invectives here because we have nothing else better to say. Mm-hmm. This is, Lindsey Graham told us he's a racist, xenophobic, narcissist, bigot. Lindsey Graham, the guy that tries to cuddle up with him now at every chance he gets. Go ahead. I'm sorry to have interrupted. But
well, you're right. And, at various times, as you've just mentioned, there are Republicans who have made these criticisms of Trump. And then, of course, he pulls everybody in line because he will not stand for any opposition. So these same people who have said he's, all of these negative things fall into line. And Democrats have done the same thing, but they're going to make a deal. And what I hope is, I live in, I'm not a Democrat, I'm a Green, but I live in hope that the millions of people who vote for Democrats wake up and see what their party is really about, and stop allowing them to spend a year saying that somebody's Hitler, and then they turn around and do a deal with Hitler. So I'm this is an opportunity. I just want to say one more thing. This is an opportunity for Democrats, for the people, to start thinking about what kind of government they want, to start thinking about the reality of the parties they have. And I'm talking specifically about Democrats, because I believe they're less likely to live up to the principles that they espouse and to be the party their members want them to be. This is an opportunity for people to face the facts about the Democrats. The Democrats are going to be apparently they're out of power already. Trump is calling the shots. And on January 20th, it will be official. So there will be no need for the usual, we have to make this deal or that deal to make something happen. They're going to be out. And I hope that people take this opportunity to be serious about politics, not to let the Democrats pretend through virtue signaling that they are better, that they are superior, and to grow up politically, to be political, because I think Democrats tend not to be political. They tend to just consider themselves superior. But this is an opportunity for Democratic Party voters to really think about what kind of party they want, to think about how they're going to get the party they want, because we're seeing once again a group of people who are going to fail them.
Shelley H. says, Dr. Leon, Vance meant that, and the reference to Hitler, as a compliment. That's pretty funny. Final point on this, Margaret, and I'm going to make a suggestion to the House Minority Leader. And this is a serious suggestion, because in another life, I worked in the telecom industry, and I negotiated major multi-million-dollar contracts with banks and things like that. Let me give Hakeem Jeffries some negotiating suggestions. Donald Trump is a transactional guy. He doesn't have a controlling ideology other than what's best for Donald Trump. He's a transactional guy. So right now, the Democrats have the Republicans over a barrel because they came to an agreement, and now Mike Johnson shook hands, and the Republicans look like the bad guy here. Hakeem, play this to your advantage. When you come back to the table, put more on the table. Look Mike Johnson in the eye and say, hey, partner, your job is on the line in 2 months or a month or whenever they're going to vote. You have screwed yourself. I am not going to help you solve that problem. You created it. Oh, by the way, these are the additional things we want from you now. And go to the American people, stand before the podium, use the bully pulpit, even though you're not the president, use the bully pulpit and explain to the American people who caused this problem. And then see what happens. Because Donald Trump is not expecting that kind of response from the Democrats. He is not expecting a man to stand up and do a man's job. Margaret.
Well, that's what should happen. Something like that is what should happen. I don't see Jeffries doing that because
he's not that kind of guy.
He's not that kind of guy. And the Democratic Party is not that kind of party. You know, one of the things that does Democrats in is that in many ways, they're not that different from Republicans. So, you know, they're, what am I trying to say? Their wing of the ruling class tells them what to do. So that's why they don't, even when they're in a position to do the things their people want them to do, they do not. And so your analysis there, while I agree with it, it assumes that the Democratic Party.
I know it ain't gonna happen.
The Democratic Party are independent actors, are honest about the things they claim to want, but they aren't. So that's not what's going to happen. And but you see also how they work together. You know, the Democrats on one hand, they'll talk about MAGA, they'll talk about Trump's a fascist.
Right.
But then there's certain issues that come up about Israel. They all together invited Netanyahu to Congress. They all together decide to give money to Ukraine. So there's always something that they're in lockstep on. So I don't see Hakeem Jeffries. I don't see the Democratic Party, this now leaderless party, I don't see them stepping up at all.
You,
That's what should happen, but yeah, I don't see it happening.
you know, I don't know. I can't remember now if my father told me this or where, but sometimes in negotiations, you got to stand up and folks got to see your pistol fall on the floor. Oh damn, was that my gun? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean for that to fall out like that. And and I also say this: if Donald Trump wins this one, he will win every one. This to me is he has started this fight before the bell has even rung.
Mm-hmm.
And if the Democrats fold on this one, they're going to be like cheap origami, and they're going to fold or like bad lawn furniture, and they're going to fold at every single turn. So this is Rumination with Andrew. What does Margaret think about the fact that world leaders are visiting Trump at his home in Florida? Is this unprecedented?
I can't remember a time where this happened, where a president-elect got all these people to come and kiss his ring. I think it's a function of Trump having been president already. Mm-hmm. So they're dealing with a known quantity. They know what they want from him, what they're hoping to get from him. And of course, we have this current president who's a non-entity. So when you put all of that together, it's while I don't recall it happening before, it's not really surprising.
I think that's a great. I don't recall anything like this happening before either. Usually, these types of conversations take place telephonically. They take place over the telephone. The incoming president gets calls from world leaders, them coming, to your point, to kiss the ring. And one point I'll throw out, and this is one point that I'll also throw out is they're getting a known quantity that is incredibly unpredictable. And I think it's very important for people to understand that they're dealing, yes, with a known quantity, but an incredibly unpredictable quantity.
Yeah, so they know he's unpredictable. They've dealt with him before, and they're trying to smooth things over in anticipation of having problems with him. So, for example, he's claiming tariffs on everything. Tariffs here, tariffs there. If you step out of line on the U.S., we're going to have tariffs against you. Is he really going to stick with that? I don't know, but they don't know either. And so, to your point, they feel the need to reach out early and try to get what they want. But good luck with that.
I want to throw this in because it's an issue on governance. This just came to mind. This past Tuesday, House Democrats elected Congressman Jerry Connolly, the Democrat from Virginia, as the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. And he's 74 years old. He defeated 35-year-old Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this because the way that this is being framed, it's being framed as a generational issue. Jerry Connolly, 74-year-old old guy, against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, 35-year-old young woman. And it's this generational issue. No discussion about policy. No discussion about what is she presenting that's different from the past. It's merely ageism as opposed to issue-driven. Margaret, your thoughts?
Well, it's hard to say. AOC, as she's known, I'll just call her AOC,
right,
has this reputation for being very progressive, but she isn't very really. She goes along. She's one of the people who propped up Biden. Always, I can't remember exactly what she said when they were in their most progressive since FDR phase,
Right.
and he's exceeded expectations. I remember her saying that, and lying on his behalf. But at the end of the day, they are going to stick with what they know. They're going to stick with the old guard. They are going to stick with people who don't make any pretense about changing anything. So I'm not surprised that they chose him instead of her. You know, it's typical of the Democrats. They do not brook any opposition. They don't even want to give the appearance that anything is going to change. So of course they stuck with him instead of with her.
And Peace in the World says, I can't agree on that one. How can she learn and get in the mix if you don't give her a chance? Well, she's had tremendous chances, and she drops the ball every chance she gets. At some point, you got to say, I can't throw to that receiver anymore because that receiver can't catch.
Well, I'll just repeat what I said. That Democrats don't even want to give the appearance of any change. You know, so somebody like Bernie Sanders, even in his phoniness, was just, a liberalish reformer.
Right.
But they made clear we're not going to.
Herder. He was a sheep herder for the Democrats.
For them. But in return, you get beaten up because they want to make clear there was nothing even tiny bit left-ish, not even an appearance of leftism. Even if you go along with us in a crunch and you prop up sleepy Joe Biden, dare I call him that, and repeat Trump's moniker, even if you're propping up Biden, your answer is still no.
Shelley H says AIPAC did not approve of AOC. Well, I have to go back and look at how much AIPAC money she has received, because they didn't approve of her on the front end, but they like her now. Anyway, so okay, I think we've got that one pretty much worked through. Okay, there we go. So there's a great piece in Black Agenda Report, which you are the editor of. It's entitled, Eric Adams and Daniel Penny Make Black People the Face of Crime. Daniel Penny's acquittal was not surprising, and neither is Mayor Eric Adams' defense of Penny and law enforcement power being used against Black people. Quote, you have someone, Penny, on that subway who was responding, doing what we should have done as a city. That's a quote from Eric Adams. This is a phenomenal piece written by you, Margaret Kimberley. I talked about this with John Jeter on Wednesday, but I really wanted to get your take on this since you wrote a piece on this as well.
Yes, we had this case in New York that wrapped up last week. A mentally ill homeless man named Jordan Neely had a breakdown. A psychotic break. I'm going to mental health break while on the subway. Daniel Penny, instead of doing what New Yorkers usually do and minding his own business and moving to a different car or something of that sort, felt compelled to put him in a chokehold. Jordan Neely died. As usually happens in these cases, he was acquitted. White people are usually acquitted in these vigilante cases. As I've said, every white person, especially white men, are deputized. But obviously there were strong feelings about this case here in New York and across the country, with many white people calling Daniel Penny a hero. Trump and Vance invited him to watch the Army-Navy game. He's raised $3 million in his defense fund, and people are still giving him money. I don't know why they're still giving him money. But Eric Adams, a Black mayor, made this comment defending him. Now, Eric Adams, in my 40 years of living in New York City, is the worst mayor we've ever had. He himself has been indicted on charges of bribery. One of his top aides was arraigned just yesterday. Correct. People resigning, people going to court. But he his constituency is not really black people. His constituency is really conservative white people. And that means, and he was a police officer at one point in his life, and he always talks about being a cop. But what this boils down to is that black people have been made the face of crime, and Eric Adams continues supporting and upholding that very pernicious belief system. So, for example, he's brought back stop and frisk. Now, the stop and frisk policies were really ramped up when Bloomberg was mayor. It was less so during de Blasio. Now Adams has brought it back. Police officers being, even a little procedural slap on the wrist that police officers may get, he's done away with. So he's always talking about crime. So this is his constituency that he is playing to. And so this case is emblematic of these larger trends in politics and the, it seems, permanent placing of black people as being the dangerous people in society. But Eric Adams shows that if a black person continues in supporting that belief system, you can become mayor. And despite his legal problems, he could be mayor again. He was once a Republican. Many years ago, he was registered as a Republican. I will not be surprised if, despite his legal troubles, he runs again as a Republican. And Donald Trump has said he might consider pardoning him should he be found guilty, saying that he's been treated very unfairly. So that's what we're facing in New York, this across the country, really, that even minimal changes in law enforcement, very modest bail reform, for example. New York State came up with the Great Bail Reform Bill, getting rid of cash bail for minor offenses. And it was immediately attacked as though murderers were all being let out of jail. And Eric Adams was one of those that led the charge. And every year that bill has been watered down. So we're back where we started from, thanks in large part to him. So the Daniel Pennies of the world have no reason to worry in New York, thanks to our mayor, who yesterday felt compelled to join the perp walk. Luigi Mangione, who is accused of shooting the health insurance CEO, was brought back to extradited back to New York, and there was a phalanx of cops. It was just ridiculous. And Eric Adams, the mayor, felt compelled to join in this theatrical performance.
We have a super sticker from Unemployed Scholar. Thank you so much for that. World leaders visiting Trump at his house in Florida is like back when there were 3 popes. There were a lot of rings to kiss back then. So Unemployed Scholar, thank you so much. So much for that contribution. Greatly appreciate it. And you mentioned stop and frisk, which I think came out of did that come out of Giuliani's broken windows?
It started, but it's
okay.
Bloomberg is the one who
right.
Really, he made it so terrible that actually a federal monitor. There's a federal monitor that it doesn't seem to matter. We have a federal monitor saying they have to close the Rikers Island jail, and that hasn't happened yet either. But yes,
I wanted to connect those dots, and that stop and frisk came out of broken windows. Thank you, Rudy Giuliani, and it's also important to know that the data showed, and I know this because I was in New York at that time speaking at events about this, citing the data, which I cannot now call off the top of my head. But the point is, when you looked at where stop and frisk was implemented, it was implemented primarily in African-American neighborhoods. When you looked at those that were subjected to it, it was African-Americans in African-American neighborhoods. And also, it did not reduce crime. It didn't work. It didn't work as it was stated. It did work in terms of terrorizing people of color, but it did not do anything in terms of lowering the rate of crime.
Well, I think the goal of stop and frisk was to get black people out of the city.
Correct.
I think that was the real goal of it. Gentrification, the commodification of everything, housing costs soaring. And this is happening across the country. But I believe that Mike Bloomberg, Giuliani's successor, it wasn't enough to drive up housing costs and all the other things that have sent black people out of New York and other major cities. I believe stop and frisk, the real purpose of stop and frisk was to get black people out of New York. And they have succeeded. Black people have been leaving New York in very huge numbers in the last 20 years. Housing is the biggest reason, the lack of affordable housing, young families starting out who can't afford to buy a home, people moving mostly to the southern states. But so that was the real deal with stop and frisk. I believe, police were really pressured to make stops, to make arrests. They did away with, and a police officer told me this, they once had discretion, and Bloomberg took it away. If there was a call about anything, there had to be an arrest, and if not, the officer could be written up or could be suspended or punished in some way. So this was a mandate from the top. It went from broken windows, policing, the idea that even the smallest thing had to be criminalized, and that would help with the crime rate. So crime rates have fallen. You wouldn't know it, though, because one of the elements in this process is to keep people afraid, to whip up a crime panic, even with crime rates falling. Eric Adams and his ilk go on and on and on about crime. And that's to get keep the support of white people, to keep them afraid, as if they weren't afraid of black people already. And politically, it's a winner.
Fear tends to be politically, fear mongering tends to be a winner. And so Cherie writes, I don't believe in murdering someone like the United Healthcare CEO. Don't we have a mental crisis in America? I understand why people are angry because of health insurance prices. A couple of things connecting the dots here. And again, Unemployed Scholar, thank you. Folks, we're here for you, but we can't do this without you. So please, if you can find some space, find some space to help support this effort, we would greatly appreciate it, and we greatly need it. I don't believe in murdering someone like the CEO. None of us do. Don't we have a mental crisis in America? We do. And it's important to remember that Ronald Reagan helped to contribute greatly to the crisis we are seeing now when he deinstitutionalized people in the United States, putting people who at the time were in hospitals out on the street. That contributed greatly to exacerbating the problem with homelessness in this country, put people that were in need of, if not hospitalization, at least access to outpatient care, put those people on the street without the care they need. And so here we are 45 years later, experiencing the repercussions of those policies. Margaret.
Yes, and that austerity continued. One of my siblings my older sister was a social worker in a psychiatric hospital. And she tells the story of how when she started her job there, they had 800 beds at this facility. And when she retired 20 years later, they only had 300 beds. And Eric Adams could, as mayor, make the case for spending more money on mental health care, but he says nothing about it. And that austerity that those numbers I just quoted, that's Andrew Cuomo's administration as governor of New York. So, but Ronald Reagan began this drive to austerity, to spend less and less on the needs of the people, and it's become politically expedient to keep going along with that. But if you talk about that, that undercuts this imperative that I have talked about, that to keep Black people under control and locked up, and to say that someone like Daniel Penny is a hero for killing someone who, and I just repeat, Jordan Neely didn't touch anybody, didn't take anybody's stuff. He was yelling and screaming. He was having a mental health crisis, and that is all. But the facts don't count when we're talking about racism, when we're talking about anti-Black racism, and about this. It seems we still have a slave patrol where every white person can be deputized to keep a Black person under control, including being able to kill them. So it all goes together. Reagan, this, as you said, is more than 40 years later. Every president we've had across the spectrum, Republicans, Democrats, all levels of government, austerity is the order of the day. And that means that human beings are going to suffer.
And you mentioned Penny as a hero. Well, no, before we get to that, let me make this point. I like you, I've been riding those New York subway trains since 1977. And Penny was on the F train, and I used to take the E or the F from Queens into the city, regular basis, all times of day and night. And so if for people who haven't had that experience, they really can't understand what it's like to ride those trains, because we see those types of circumstances on those trains all the time. This was not an unusual thing to experience, whether it's people breakdancing on the trains or swinging from the rail. There are all kinds, people singing and dancing, all kinds of things happening on the train all the time. Hardly anybody ever gets hurt. And you just, like you said, you either move to another train or you just sit back and watch the show. And when the doors open, you get off the train. So I just wanted to reiterate that point. And now, so J.D. Vance brings Penny to the Army-Navy game, and he's hailed as a hero. Talk about the optics of that.
Well, the optics are very clear. It's all about, it's about white supremacy. At the end of the day, that's what it is. And, I can just hear someone saying now, Vance's wife is from India. Now, okay, that's nice. But, other groups who are not white can, in a sense, be considered as white people, or at least be different from Black people. So, but he was playing to the crowd. That's how they won, talking about immigrants. Haitians were eating cats and dogs. In Vance's state of Ohio, so he knew better than anybody that this story of Springfield, Ohio, my mom's hometown, by the way, they knew that was a lie. But they have been running on white supremacy. It could be immigration. It could be so-called law and order. It could be this trope about big cities and being dens of iniquity, and everybody's terrified. Any number of those things. But the laws don't apply the same to Black people. And that's what we've seen with this case, with this man being acquitted. I've told somebody, people said, well, maybe the chokehold didn't kill him. They said he had the sickle cell trait. He said this, they said that. And I said, he was fine until Penny put him in a chokehold. So,
and 8 minutes later, he was dead.
There you go. So come on, but these facts don't really count. It's more about giving white people control, and the Eric Adamses of the world because it's politically expedient, will go right along with it. And he potentially, because he has taken that stance, could be mayor again, despite his many legal troubles.
And to that point, these policies spreading with the sensationalization of this, with the normalization of this, with the hero worship of this, these policies spreading nationwide, targeting the vulnerable and criminalizing mental health struggles. This only sends us further into the abyss, Margaret.
It does, because, as we've pointed out, this for 40 years now, we have been told that Black people are the source of every problem in the country, and therefore don't spend any money. Government spending is tied to Black people, so much so that many white people will oppose things that help them, because they have gotten this message that government spending means helping Black people, the welfare queen, and so forth. So we've been in this place for a very long time. And even the first Black president we had, what did he do? He praised Reagan. Obama, when he mentioned Reagan, he was always talking about how wonderful he was.
Reagan was his favorite president by his own admission.
Yes. So, so we have this country, unfortunately, where when we look back, we are encouraged to continue those policies that have failed our humanity, failed in fighting racism, failed in fighting poverty, failed in helping working people get insurance. We touched on the shooting of this health insurance CEO, and we have these insurance. He made $10 million a year, and he was the low man on the totem pole. Most of his cohort made $15 and $20 million, and you're paid that kind of money in order to save money for the corporation, meaning deprive people of health care. And this is something that everybody's on board with. If you wanted to vote for a different healthcare system, you had nobody to vote for in the duopoly. And if you did think about voting for Jill Stein or voting outside of the two wings of the duopoly, then you were wasting your vote, or there was something ridiculous, or you were hurting the Democrats. So we don't even have a way to speak up about this. The conversation has been closed off, and it could be healthcare, it could be crime. We have, sadly, a system that denies our humanity, and people profit politically by continuing those trends.
And it's important to also remember that a week or 10 days before he was shot, the CEO of United Healthcare had sold his stock. Right before, a day or two before, it was announced that United Healthcare was under investigation. And that's an element to this conversation that seems to now have been dismissed in terms of, is there a possible connection between the two? Final point I want to get to, because I know your time is very limited, and I greatly appreciate you giving me the time that you have. Another piece in Black Agenda Report, the Biden administration fails to win imprisonment of the Uhuru 3. The U.S. sought to once again target Black radical forces by charging violations of the Foreign Agent Registration Act. The Uhuru 3 were acquitted of those charges, but convicted under the prosecutor's favorite charge of conspiracy, a thought crime. The decision to sentence the Uhuru 3 to probation and not prison is not complete justice, but ultimately a victory in the ongoing struggle against state repression. And that was written by Jamu Baraka and published in Black Agenda Report. Margaret Kimberley.
Yes, and I interviewed Omali Yeshitela, one of the Uhuru 3, and you can see that today, starting today, blackagendareport.com, and we spoke about this victory that they received probation and community service instead of the possibility of jail time. But this whole thing was cooked up by the federal government, alleging that they acted under the control of the Russian government, charge for which they were acquitted, as you said. But juries are encouraged to find people guilty of something. That's why they use conspiracy. So you can be found guilty of conspiring to do something that the jury agreed you did not do. So this is an important outcome, and full justice would have been a complete acquittal of every charge. But I think it's very important that Omali Yeshitela and his two co-defendants received probation instead of jail time.
And folks, you can see that interview on Black Agenda Report, and Chairman Omali Yeshitela will join me tomorrow from 11 to 12 p.m. Eastern on my Sirius XM show on Inside the Issues on channel 126 from 11 to 12. So tune in there. Margaret Kimberley, as always.
One more thing.
Yes,
I just want to remind folks, what is going on with my camera? There we go. I just wanted to remind folks about my book, Prejudential, Black America and the Presidents. It's an excellent book, if I say so myself.
I agree.
You can get it from the publisher Steerforth Press or from Barnes & Noble, Amazon, etc. And thank you so much, Wilmer.
Margaret, as always, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. The audience loves you. We love you here, and have a wonderful holiday. I hope you aren't affected by if there is a government shutdown. And as always, look forward to having you back.
Sorry, my camera's gone out. I have to figure out what that is, but I hope you can hear me.
We hear you.
And so thank you so much, Wilmer. And I look forward to seeing you in the new year and joining you again sometime.
Thank you. And Kevin Baptiste, thank you so much for your super sticker. Greatly appreciate that. Happy winter solstice, everyone. Shelley H. wishes everyone a happy winter solstice. Kevin Baptiste thanks you, Margaret Kimberley. Shelley H. says, go outside. Well, yeah, go outside after the show's over. Don't go outside right now. So with that, folks, hey, I got to thank my guest, Margaret Kimberley, for joining me today. Go to Black Agenda Report. Go to Black Agenda Report. Phenomenal news coverage, phenomenal journalism at Black Agenda Report. Thank you all so much for listening to the Connecting the Dots podcast with me, Dr. Wilmer Leon. Stay tuned. New episodes next week. I hope the government doesn't shut down, but if it does, well, they brought it on themselves. Also, please follow and subscribe, leave a review, share the show. Follow us on social media. You can find all the links below in the show description. And remember, folks, that this is where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge. Talk without analysis is just chatter, and we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. See y'all next week. Until then, I am Wilmer Leon. Have a great weekend. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.